A world-first cancer treatment program is being rolled out across Australia aimed at curing or prolonging the lives of more than 1,000 children every year. The Zero Childhood Cancer program involves a sophisticated genetic sequencing test that looks at the alterations that may be driving the cancer's growth. A database of more than 120 drugs can then target that unique alteration. Joining us now is Professor David Eisenstat from the Royal Children's Hospital. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, Professor. Firstly, just explain for us a bit more about how this genetic sequencing works and then what you do with it in terms of then helping to inform the treatment options that these sick kids can get.
So in the new program, which will be for all newly diagnosed patients, children with cancer in Australia, instead of the ones that were just hard to treat or progressed, is tumor will be sampled as well as the child's blood. And we will do whole genome sequencing, which is every single gene in the human body, to identify alterations. And what's different is that many other countries have more of a targeted panel and could perhaps miss things. So this will be very complete. The challenge is the amount of data that's being derived is significant. And so how to manage that? And the Zero program, which is headquartered at the Children's Cancer Institute in Sydney, has a tremendous group of bioinformaticians that can curate the data, identify the alterations, and then they have pediatric oncologists involved, a new breed that we call molecular pediatric oncologists, who can help interpret the data and then work with others to identify potential drugs that can be used. So it's a significant effort. And then, of course, we hold weekly meetings called tumor boards, molecular tumor boards, to discuss cases of interest and get everyone's input, because sometimes there may be more than one drug that's potentially useful for the child. So it's a significant program. It's national. And what's different from other countries is that all children who are diagnosed will be tested. It's very exciting.
And so when you talk about all children, that means it doesn't matter where the child lives around Australia, they'll have access to this program. And does it work for all cancer types?
So that's really a bit of an unknown, because we've been focusing on those difficult, hard to treat cancers. And so what's going to come out of this with kids who are newly diagnosed, for which we have good treatments already? For example, overall 80 to 85% of children, all comers with cancers, are not cured, but in remission at 5 years. And so it's going to change the paradigm a little bit. As I mentioned, there are only a limited number of drugs. The driver for drug creation is not pediatric cancers, it's adult cancers. And sometimes the drugs are not available in Australia. So that's a separate challenge. The statistics are that if we can identify a change, and right now the Zero program can identify in over 90% of children with cancer, about 70% of those will find some sort of actionable target. And then of those, about 70% at the present time will have some sort of response. So it's still early days. So there are, yes, going to be children that don't necessarily have a genetic change that we can target, but we've never been able to look at this at a population level to understand how many there are. So it's a major step forward. It's not the last step.
So David, when we look at kids with cancer, what sort of numbers are we talking about here? Just how many Aussie children are being diagnosed with cancers each year? And is that number remaining steady, or are you seeing a growth in diagnoses each year?
Well, that's an interesting question. Right now, we think, based upon our statistics and forecasts at all the 9 centers in Australia that treat children with cancer, that we'll be achieving about 1,000 new diagnoses a year. And overall, on a given year, we have 2,000 children that are under treatment, because some of the treatments last for more than a year. So the numbers, are they increasing? Hard to know. I think because we're so good at treating upfront most cancers, and we have more survivors, we have more children eligible to relapse, so the numbers are actually increasing. We're also better at making diagnoses, and children are referred to earlier, and there's more index of suspicion. We have better tools. So the question is that really an increase overall, or are we just better at doing what we used to do? Children presenting earlier, better and faster diagnoses.
Professor, this program focuses on children, as you've explained, but do you hope that we will get to a point where all Australians diagnosed with cancer will have the same access to that genetic sequencing to help inform their treatment options? Is that the direction that we're heading?
That's an important question. If you take 100 people, all ages, with cancer, how many will actually be children with cancer? That number is anywhere from 3 to 5%, depending upon where you cut off the age range for a child. Is it 15 through the World Health Organization, or 18, which is in most children's hospitals in Australia? Population between 17 and 24 is another 3 to 4%. So that means, let's just say, 90 to 93% of cancers are in the adult age range. And so that's a large number of patients per year diagnosed, and the incidence of cancer goes up as the population ages. So it's going to take a tremendous effort in some ways to make sequencing even less expensive, to have things automated, and to be able to roll it out to the entire population. However, I would counter that pediatric cancer, and this is a quote from a colleague of mine, is both big enough and small enough. Some of the principles that we derive from this, the observations, the ability to create these data sharing networks, will be adopted in adult cancer. And I think before I retire, we will see a majority of adults with access to this.
We'd all like to see that. Dr. David Eisenstat, really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.